A gente não consegue acelerar o tempo, mas podemos acelerar ainda mais as nossas ações. Por isso, a Braskem assumiu novos compromissos com as pessoas e com o planeta. Entre eles, a eliminação de resíduos plásticos, o combate às mudanças climáticas e a promoção da inclusão e equidade em toda a nossa cadeia de valor. Vamos transformar o mundo num lugar mais sustentável para todos, deste tempo e dos próximos. Braskem, um futuro mais sustentável hoje.
Boa tarde a todos.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are back with the third panel, the role of the business sector in the decade of oceanic science. Will participate in this panel Glauco Kimura de Freitas, Natural Science Project Officer at UNESCO Brazil. Carla Sivert Cope, she is the Director of Sustainability of the Ministry of Health, Science and Innovation. Alexander Tura, he is the Secretary of the University of Sao Paulo, Coordinator of UNESCO for the Sustainability of the Oceans. Luisa Santiago, Executive Director for Latin America at the Foundation Ellen MacArthur. Carolina Santos Pecorari, Director of Sustainability at Ambev. For moderation, I give the floor to Juliana Poncioni, Director of Mali for the Oceans, Brazil. Hello, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, welcome everybody. This possibility, this opportunity that CBDS is offering us to talk a bit about this important subject. Well, welcome participants, speakers, organization of today's event. First of all, our subject today is to talk about this, what happened in 2017 and 2030 that we discussed about oceanic science to meet the deadlines of the UN. The life of the oceans, they are essential for the life on Earth. In Brazil, the blue economy has more than millions of dollars and 80% of the oceans are unknown. However, The threat with pollution, warming, acidification, unsustainable exploitation is putting everybody at risk. To having a circular economy with investment based on science for resilience, consumption, and sustainable attitude is fundamental. The vision for 2050 is a circular economy in which the business solutions can help for redesign the production, the manner that residues and pollution don't exist, and optimizing the use of products and generate natural systems such as the oceans. To discuss about this theme, in the panel, the role of the business sector in the decade of oceanic science, we receive Alexander Tura of the University of São Paulo and coordinator of UNESCO for the sustainability of the oceans. Welcome, Alexander, once again. Carolina Santos Pecorari, Director of Sustainability of ESG, ZAS of Ambev. Welcome, Carolina. Glauco Kimura de Freitas, Natural Science Project Officer of UNESCO Brazil. Welcome, Glauco. Luisa Santiago, Executive Director for Latin America of Ellen Marcato Foundation, and Karen Silverwood Cope, General Coordinator of Oceans, and also in charge of the innovation sector for the oceans. Let's start the panel asking Alexander Tura, our professor of the University of São Paulo. Let's get started. This project, Blue Keepers, talks about what is happening in the ocean in the long and middle run to have different levels of government and civil society. When we were talking about that in Brazil, what are the next steps in the aspiration for this project? It's a very innovative project. There are lots of international ideas about that, so we can understand in a structuring and lasting manner what is happening in the oceans. As you have said before, we have lots of data, a very important reflection based on science, so decisions are made, and also we can have follow-ups or suggested. In the essence, Blue Keepers is a project that has designed an environment of convergence, of new stamina, new initiatives that we call an ecosystem of innovation to fight what is happening in the ocean, that will have a spatial possibility centered in the cities. And having that, the idea of the Blue Keepers based on science to bring in guidance adapted to the different realities of the cities that we have in Brazil, considering population, income, socioeconomic profile, generally speaking, also socioeconomic index, and everything that has to do with the solid waste, or how we're going to simplify these operations, looking to this prospect, the engagement of the local communities formed by the civil society, government, private initiatives, university, and all the citizens to identify problems, looking for solutions based on solution, but mainly in this collective learning that we're going to advance. In addition of this strategy to fight that, we are going to establish a collaboration network that this will help this movement to to become resilient to all of that. That's what this call bases on. All this partner, private sector, government, they get together to this initiative to sum up and go through this transformation, which is essential, it's urgent, and also important. Thank you, Alexander. Fantastic, great remarks. Well, let's ask now Carolina Santos Pecorari, Director of Sustainability and ESG for Ambev. Carolina, water is the main resources for the beverage industry and, of course, for Ambev. In addition of being a reference in water efficiency, it's very active in the water themes for CBDS. We are very much looking to the water security. The use of packagings is still an issue because there is more, pollution on the oceans. Do you have any possibility of using these bottles and how and where they're going to be disposed? First of all, I'd like to thank you for the invitation. It's always fantastic to share information because I learn with everybody. Actually, we have a very lasting and meaningful work to understand and to reuse the bottles. This project that we have since 2010 shows what is happening, the work that we're doing very strongly, and also we are looking for partners to help us both for the availability of water for everybody. So how we're going to use the forest, the water, working with the farmers and those who live around these basins, and also to have more conservation, preservation techniques with the local communities. Also to generate sustainable foods that remain for a long time and disseminating this information for the next generations. In our work, packages, it's not different from what we do with water. We have lots of responsibility. We integrate all the chain. We work with the destination, packaging, disposing, the products, of course. We've always worried about that. We also work with different partners. We have 42% of our sales in Brazil packed. All the packages is returnable. In other countries, such as Peru, it's 74%. Our target that we launched in 2018 has the goal to have 100% packed in returnable bottles and also made of recyclable materials. Regarding the side of it re-educating the consumers and also discussing the pains that they have. One of them has to do with convenience. Some people don't have the space to store the bottles, for example, and the time to go to a collection place and give that bottle back. One of the solutions that we have, because there is not a single solution that serves all the consumers, in this project, I like to mention what we are doing. For example, with deliveries at delivery, we have a sales in which the consumer delivers the product. They delivers the bottle empty without having to leave his home. That's a modality that represents 40% of our platform. There are many other works that we are designing to engage in this collection of the bottles. So in this, what we call circular packaging, we observed that it did not address the plastic bottles. So in 2020, we had a commitment of plastic products, how we could neutralize the plastic up to 2025. We are acting in 3 different fronts: replacement, returnable and recyclable bottles. It's part of this program of 2018 and partnerships with different players. The plastics of our chains, they are not essential. We are working how we can replace by other materials. We worked with more than 35 redesign of packaging so we can replace them or reduce the size. That's what we call lightweight of the packaging, always respecting the safety and the quality of the product. And these initiatives, they represent a reduction of more than 2,000 tons of plastic. So it's good to comment that we call SnapTech, that takes the secondary plastic of this package that we call shrink. There are some glue points in these tins. There will be only one holder in this package. There will be a reduction. We worked together with ISCOL. We have also a pilot test. We have an accelerator that we're working together that is, I think it's called Glow Tech. It's a ring of corn material. Instead of having lots of rings that put together the tins made of plastic, now we have this straw made of corn. We are recently working in this production of this new solution. It consumes 80% less water than a normal packaging of a card box, card paper, and also saves lots of electric power. So it's a solution that solves many environmental issues. In addition to that, we are designing more solutions to have more recyclable materials in our package, as I have said, which is our target. This has been done. The announcement of Guaraná, that we launched the first bottle that is recyclable in 2020. We have 75% of the packagings that are in the market of Guaraná. They are made of recyclable material, and we want to reach 100% of the bottles with recyclable material. And we have evolved a lot. So having this plastic target, we have evolved from 2023 for 35 of plastic neutralization in our packages. In terms of innovation and partnership, I like to recall all the partnerships that we have because of this accelerator that we have, green mining, DIY, I think she said. Also, there is a solution with technology of blockchain to detect what are the areas of disposal and work with collection with collectors. They are registered, they are paid for this job. I mean, to go to hotels, to restaurants, get together all this recyclable material and then dispose of them correctly. Every glass will go to our glass factory in Rio, and they are expanding with other materials for different solutions. So the other possibility that we have more recently is with the We Green, and also with collecting solutions. There are facilities that foster the culture of recycling and the conversion of the materials, delivery of the recycled materials, both generating income for the collectors. The green goes to the collector. I mean, taking this intermediary in the middle of that, it's a manner to generate an additional income, and all these values are converted in a card. So there is another partnership that is called Institute Buddha. It's an environmental education in these countries that also address the problems with the convenience in Sao Paulo. We're working with other startups to solve all that. As I said, there is not a solution that solves everything, a silver bullet. We have to work with collaboration, partnership, and development of business inclusion, diversity. So we are able not only to reach these goals for 2025, but to educate consumers, and so the partners can work together to reduce the environmental impacts.
Thank you, Carolina. It was amazing, your remark. And now to have another question for Luisa Santiago, Executive Director of the Foundation, Ellen Carter. Luisa, it's been a long time that Ellen MacArthur has done that. So I'm also a sailor, just like Ellen MacArthur. And do we have this passion about circular economy and years of having this advertisement of this point not only to have the zero that not only in the land but also in the sea. So what are the breakthroughs, the advances we have had, and what is the concern for the future in terms of the Brazilian scenario? Thank you so much, Juliana. It's a great pleasure to be with you. It's just like Carolina said, the foundation, Ellen MacArthur, as you said, we work with that. It's our only mission to work with the transition and accelerate the transition for the circular economy. Everything we do has to do with that, and plastic is a fundamental topic since 2016 with our initiative for the economy of plastic. So that's called New Plastics Economy. We work with data generation that's fundamental, and also put into practice what we have created in terms of vision of the circular economy for plastic. And you have fully understood that this plastic sector is destroyed because it has a linear logic of extracting and goes to waste. So the problem as far as the plastic is to see if it's working. The result, we have millions and millions of plastic into the environment and the oceans and the dumps. So it has a big impact in the diversity of natural resources, and it's been contributing to the climate crisis. And economically speaking, it makes no sense because according to our calculations, 80 to 120 billions of dollars, they go to waste every year in the economy. And one of the central points is in our first report that was the basis in terms of the science and theory for plastic. It's a very alarming topic that's drawing the attention from all over the world, that if you don't do anything to change the roadmap for plastics by 2050, we'll have more plastic than fish in the ocean. It has gone viral in networks, and many people do not know where it comes from. It comes from our report, the first one released in 2016, and last year we supported another study that was very much focused on this wave of plastics. The name itself says breaking the plastic wave. So in terms of the plastic in the ocean with its linear system, so we have to go deep in terms of this topic of more plastics than fish in the ocean. By 2040, if you don't change our attitudes, keeping this linear process, the volume of plastics will double, and in the oceans it will be threefold, and then the plastic in the ocean will go 4 times more than now. So there's a solution, and the solution, according to our perspective, is for us to go towards an economy in a very fast way, moving towards the circular economy. We cannot leave this trajectory through recycling, and we cannot keep cleaning the oceans to offer this a solution, and you cannot burn the garbage. We can only increase the symptoms. The circular economy of a plastic means that the plastics keep in terms of the economy, they don't become residues in the ocean. This economy is based on this perspective, has 3 clear visions. One of them is to eliminate all the plastics that's not necessary, and then you must have innovation for all the plastic that is necessary, must be recycled and recomposted, and then you can use everything to keep the economy away from the oceans. As for breakthroughs we have had, we work on a global scale, and these breakthroughs in terms of our ideas to change the whole system. These advances, they come from volunteers. So voluntarily, the industry will publicly compromise to take specific actions to eliminate, innovate, and circulate. So a global commitment to end plastic. So we released that in 2018 in the Oceans Congress in Bali. This global commitment, there are more than 100 organizations that are signees in this event, and these companies are compromised in terms of transparency public commitment, with transparency, with a common view, with ambitious targets for the near future. And then we have a very specific publishing of these points. The other one in 2018 is the global network with 11 pacts that work on a regional basis. So the global commitment for each organization, each government on an individual level. The plastic pact works in the same way for the linear plastic in a regional or national wide level. And then, I repeat, we have 11 pacts with countries and continents. Here in Latin America, we have Chile, and these 11 pacts, there are more than 600 organizations committed to this global view for 2030. Last year, 2020, we had this global pact, 2 of them for companies and 2 of them for policymakers. For companies, they define targets for reduction with all those who have signed, not only the recycled control, not only increasing all the aspects of recycled materials, but also to reduce on an ambitious level all the objectives, the amount of plastic, to take and to intensify the efforts we have in terms of this extreme. Those who eliminate necessity for the plastic in terms of the innovation, the delivery, some innovation is parts, and they avoid the generation of residues since the beginning. And another point, we have many brands, many retailers who are defining these targets for reduction, putting into practice. And the other call for companies to include in their roadmaps reliable plans to make recycling effective for those packages that are not recyclable. So we can have our actions being direct, straightforward, but they are not enough for the scale for this change, especially in the speed we want. So we have different calls for 2020, 2021, and the ones for policymakers. We have a global treaty, just like we have other treaties with other teams. We are pushing forward this conversation for a global treat in terms of United Nations environment, so that this work is based, once again, not only on keeping cleaning and recycling and cleaning the oceans, but to get rid of this problem in terms of a circular economy. More than 80 companies are supporting, and financial institutions as well, but we need to strengthen that with governments. And once again, we talked about a mechanism of politics working with plastics. We could understand there is a political mechanism that's very much necessary and important, and the only proven way for the recycling economy in terms of downstreams and in a different direction than upstream. The producer does not have any shared responsibility. That means nothing, but it's mandatory and based on contributions, on taxes, on penalties, return that it can be returned to the industry. So then we can offer this scale and transform the circular economy of plastics as a rule, not an exception. Here in Brazil, there are some co-organizations individually committed, just like they said in terms of Ambev, which is very ambitious. But out of these companies that signed, 8 of them are Brazilian in the city of São Paulo. The public policy is included in this vision. And it's a big challenge in our country to understand fully the ambitions, the intentions, and to reduce the resistance in terms of nonsense concepts, but to collaborate in the chain of the systemic value. There's a big noise in terms of necessity of reducing single-use packagings, to reduce the demand of plastic and not use it with the robust producers. And then we see that in Brazil, we must advance in a collective work to get to this ambition, collaboration, and action on the whole chain of plastic on both national scale and a global scale as well, so that we can, in order to change this logical linear action without precedent for these visions, because very important, because the linear economy of plastic, it's a big danger for the ocean, and they depend upon that. Thank you, Luisa, for your remarks. And many of the points you have said connect to the next question that is directed for Caio Silva. She's Karen Silverwood, that is the responsible for innovation technology, and she talks about TNRS. You cited some elements of solid residues. You criticized the other points as well, but I have a question to ask Karen so that you can understand a little better this national policy. Karen, this national policy of solid residues back to 2010 understands that as a collector point, as a tool, collects the selective collection as an instrument for a clean ocean. What are the actions for scientific so that the Brazilian residue not pollute rivers and oceans? And what's the role the industry sector has in this part? Thank you. It's a big pleasure to be here with you, with all my colleagues here in this panel. So I would like to congratulate CBDS for this fundamental point that must be discussed with us. As for the government in terms of this research, we have as a central point the production of knowledge and the use and impact of these residues in the ecosystems, in the human health and economy as well. So today, this Ministry of Science Technology collects around 80 projects of research, and it analyzes not only the impact of the oil spill in the ocean, but also the impact of residues and pollution in islands, bays, so groups of islands, archipelagos, and all the impacts we have in our health, economy, and importance we have in terms of data generation, so that we can build public policies based on factors for an international articulation with agreement with other countries, having dialogues with the public sector and private sector as well. And I'd like to highlight some important points for the advances in terms of the combat for the residues of the waste. And we have launched for a public call to have a national organization as Institute of Research for the Sea. Nowadays, Brazil does not have this research institute devoted to the ocean, and we believe that this way we can improve and consolidate our system of oceanographic studies and research in a stronger way. So if you are interested, the proposals must be sent from 6 to 11 of November in a selection process that is included. And we understand that science and knowledge are not related and consumed and produced by scientists. So we have a program for scientific advertisement, and we have been working with a big number of children in terms of this ocean Olympics, and also Blue School. It's another project to have the discussion of this marine ecosystem and coastal areas. It's part of the school curriculum for children, especially for the plastic. We have another announcement for research project specific for plastics. We want to generate data, knowledge, the source of pollution, and the impact of this contamination of plastics in our ocean, so that we can contribute to these projects. And the action of decade for the ocean region. In terms of Brazil and all the society, the United Nations have declared, and Glauco will talk a little bit about more in terms of this decade, and have several actions being coordinated in terms of the decade of this part, including Brazil. and the private sector, the society, and several segments that are being represented. It's fundamental that the private sector can fully understand that the ocean is an ecosystem to be explored on a sustainable level, and it offers resources. It's an economic source as well, and the knowledge about it, about the ocean, is fundamental for this exploration can be achieved on an efficient level. Today, we have problems in terms of this exploration, and we believe that in partnerships with the public private sector, we can have the understanding for this business model that can be more efficient for the sector in terms of the economy and other proposals that we can advance. Right now, we have a database of ideas in this decade for this ocean part in Brazil, and I have a stock of more than 1,000 ideas that are registered, that we have collected since 2020 with proposals and projects necessary to enlarge the knowledge of, to go deeper in terms of the knowledge of oceans in Brazil, new lines of research and production of ideas and data collection to apply in the private sector. So it's very important for the private sector to be engaged and to have a voice saying what kind of data the private sector needs to be more efficient in terms of the use and exploration on a sustainable level of the ocean. And then we want to produce this knowledge, and this alliance is fundamental for all of us. There's no doubt that the economic return of investment can be fantastic if we invest in knowledge, in a better economy for this marine ecosystem. Oh, I have to say that we are totally available and at disposal to say this panel with many women is fantastic. I'd like to congratulate with the very good quality of panelists we have here. So working together, we can not only this decade, that's part of this oceanic part, but also in this we can have a production of knowledge that will change the reality and the way we explore the ocean. Thank you so much. Thank you, Karen. It's very important what you say. When you talk about schools, it's very relevant to be included here. Now, let's move forward. Just like Karen said, let's ask another question for Glauber.
Okay, he's from UNESCO Brazil. We would like to know, Glauco, what is Brazil thinking and planning for this ocean decade? What is the call to action that we have to do in the entrepreneurial world? Glauco, please. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Good afternoon. I'd like to start talking to thank especially Marina Grossi and her team that made this event possible with the participation of UNESCO in this panel. I'm very amazed with this panel, with the event that is so important. It's for the record that I'd like to congratulate CBDS and everybody. I also would like to say hi to my colleagues that are sharing today's panel with me. As it was said before, the decade for oceanic science, or the decade of the ocean, it was approved in 2017 by the UN, but it's enforced in this year up to 2030. The synchrony with the agenda of 2030, it helps to foster this agenda, especially the ODS 14 connected to the ocean. That is, I mean, we're not doing anything about it. We have 10 years to make a difference for the work, for the preservation of the ocean. The commission that we have, intergovernmental, is in charge for the coordination of this project globally. And we started in 2018, right after it was approved by the UN Assembly up to 2020. That is 2 years of a prep work. It was very broad, participative, and more than 14 workshops worldwide, region-wide, involving people from different sectors. This process helped to implement this decade, is in our website, download free in many different languages. It's a lot of information because it's a very rich discussion that we have held. Amongst the information, there are 7 expected results for the decade: clean ocean, health and resilient ocean, productive, forecastable, safe, accessible, and inspiring and engaging. These are the 7 results for the decade. In Brazil, we have put together a committee to support that. On 8 July 2020, on the Day of the Ocean, we have formed this committee. It's been led by the Ministry of Science and Technology. Karen is in charge of that, having the participation of 15 different institutions that represent the civil society, academia, private sector, international organisms, NGOs. It is a very diversified commission. Brazil UNESCO is part of this commission, as well as UNESCO for the care in the oceanic science. And this commission, after it was designed, we were able to have a prep event, but it was inspired in a global project. We had 7 workshops, has taken place from August to December 2020, involved roughly 500 people from different, areas, segments, sectors. In addition to this global event, there is lots of content to implement this decade in Brazil as well. This plan is co-designed, co-created with many different sectors. And the participation of the private sector has been kind of shy. We have had only 5% of manifestations of interest coming from the private sector. According to the report of this prep activity, it's available in our website. You can go there and check it out. It's a very beautiful site. So we need, as Karen said, that the private sector participates more, as Carol has said. This ocean decade is a great opportunity, not only for the company, but for the society as well. Every opportunity comes from a crisis, right? That's how it happens normally. Those who talked before me, we have the plastic crisis, the garbage on the oceans, but also we have a crisis of lack of knowledge about the oceans. And I normally showcase with 2 data that are very, very impactful. The first is that only 19% of the fund of the ocean, the bottom of the ocean, is known today. We have more than 80% that is completely unknown. We are in the 21st century. We know other planets. The moon territory is better known than the bottom of the ocean. The other data that bothers me is that all the reports produced by UNESCO, the investment in oceanic science is only 2% of all the budgets aimed at technology and innovation around the world. So we don't know, and we are not moving ourselves to get to know it better. We've got 10 years to get this to this movement, to this target. We do have time to change, to go back to this very uncomfortable position. This National Commission is preparing an implementation material, but we can talk about some very promising fronts for the next years to engage companies in this project. One of them is the circular economy. Everybody already talked about. It's very relevant, it's very promising, with many important players discussing about this. Karen also said a database with ideas of innovation. Many companies, sometimes they want to invest in technology, innovation, but it's not easily found. There are not many organizations that have conducted projects about that. We want to have a database of projects, ideas for clean, health, resilient, and all the 7 points that I have just mentioned before. This ocean culture, if this decade was a home, the house would be made of a foundation. The culture was translated as ocean literacy. That means education about the ocean, to acknowledge how our actions impact the world and how the oceans are important to our lives. There is a framework, there is an approach about the ocean that has been carefully designed, that we would like to work that not only at schools, as Karen said, but in informal areas, or also for the business world. We also talk about blue carbon. The blue carbon is using the good ecosystem, not the carbon sequestration, but other initiatives. We have initiatives about the blue carbon that we might work with them in Brazil, and then this spatial sea initiative for the major sectors of harbors, infrastructure, sea infrastructure, so their operations will respect the oceans with less impact, bringing gains for the companies and also for the environment. To wrap up my speech, I'm inviting, it's a call, that my question is where, how can I start? Professor Kimura can talk in details. We have what we call Marina Week 2021 on Friday. We are going to close the event, and we are going to launch the commitment for the ocean, a commitment for the ocean, and we'd love to see other organizations being committed to this ocean, signing this letter, forming this coalition, so together we can implement that for the next years. That's a tip. And get in touch with us. We've got a website, we have a channel in the YouTube, we have we're part in the social networks, and our contact, that we would love to receive contacts so we can strive for partnerships. I'm gonna give the information for the event. I'd like to say goodbye and thank you very much for having me. Thank you, Glauco. Thank you, everybody, for your speech. Excellent remarks, excellent speech. For my final considerations, I'm going to start talking about what Glauco said. I do believe that we can only change things that we know. We love, we honor, knowing that space, knowing that ecosystem, we start to respect and care for. As Glauco said, that's the basis, that's the foundation to take care of. And then after that, everybody talked about collaboration. If we want to change the reality that we live in, that we might face in 2050, if we don't work towards that, we need the collaboration of the civil society, governments, business world. It's essential to understand that everybody has a key participation in the changes that we need to have. Also, what we can talk about ambition, we need to have ambitious targets, having the collaboration of the different sectors of the society, so we can keep on alive. Of course, that's necessary so we can live. It's more than simply maintain a business, maintain but we need the ocean to survive as a basis. Every two breathing, one of them comes from the ocean. To know, to love, collaborate, so we can really act in a very ambitious manner, so we can keep on living in this blue planet that should be called a blue planet or blue ocean. I'd like to thank CBDs for this beautiful organization and to let you know that we're available to talk, to understand what we can do together to collaborate for the open, for the planet. So thank you very much. The channel is open for everybody. See you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Juliana. Thank you, all the participants. We will be back with the panel 4. We are going to talk about how we can disclose financial demonstrations. And then we're going to meet back at 4 o'clock. Thank you.